You're listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast, a discussion with engaging, empowering, and enlightening leaders about the greatest competitive advantage in business and entrepreneurship that often goes unrecognized: a team's energy. Here's your host, the woman who puts the energy in synergy, Karen R. Jenkins.
Welcome to this segment of the Synergy Leadership Podcast. I am so excited to have a very dear friend and a special professional to join me today, Mr. Francisco Martinez Jr. You're in for a treat. The information that he's going to share is going to be life-changing, and I can tell you from firsthand because it has been for me. And I don't want to belabor this. So first of all, Francisco, thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule joining us today. And I'd like to start off by you just introducing yourself to our audience and telling them who you are and what you do.
How you doing, everybody? My name is Francisco Martinez Jr. As Karen said, I've been knowing Karen for a little bit, some years now, and I do thank everybody for being part of this segment today. You can say I am a personal trainer. I do have my own business. However, it's goes a little bit more in depth than just being a personal trainer. This is more of a relationship that I build with my clients. We go as far as, they actually think you shall be a model that I believe and I actually live and go by it. Everything is a mindset on how we wake up in the morning to actually how we carry ourselves throughout the day to actually when we are ready to go to sleep. Everything is about the energy, the positive energy. So, these are some of the things that I do preach. I practice it as well. So again, it's not just personal training, it's the whole aspect of what health and beauty and how to make you feel like a crispy $1,000 bill, where again, you could have some sort of a kink in your neck. I got you, I'm gonna fix you. You have some imbalances in your hips, I got you, I'll fix you. If you have any type of issues with your back, with your ankle, I do pretty much everything and anything in this business right here. So it's not just personal training that the focus is on.
And I'll tell you, I've gone through numerous personal trainers, and I've shared this with you that I found you to be the most effective for several reasons, and we'll delve down into that. But tell us a little bit about your background and what led you up to be where you are right now, because if I had to describe you, I wouldn't say personal trainer. Because your methodologies and your processes are some personal training, some which includes kind of the physical as well as the eating part, but you do mentality. There's some chiropractor going on, there's some rehabilitation going on, and I've never had an opportunity to work with someone that had all of that encompassing in one. You even go so far as to look at your clients and say, oh, wait a minute, your gait isn't, right. The way that you're walking, not necessarily, it may be a limp that you didn't realize you had, or you're like this, your one shoulder is higher than the other. That happened to my daughter, and I didn't realize that I had a little bit of that as well. You work with my son after he had his ruptured brain aneurysm and he was rehabbing, but he still had a gait in his walk. And after working with you probably just for a little over 2 weeks, it was gone. So all of that came together somehow. So take us back in the past and share with us how you evolved into the Francisco Martinez Jr. now offering these very, very high level, intense services.
Well, I'm going to take you back then to let's say my single digits, right? 7, 8, 9 years old. Always been into the fitness. Always liked to how it made me feel as a kid. And I was around older people, and one of the older people that I want to thank is actually one of my cousins, Joaquin in Spanish, was Joaquin in English. And, Joking was he's about 7 or 8 years older than me. But he had done military time already in my teens now. So I looked up to him as far as what his style of training. I had another cousin of mine that he's retired NYPD right now, and he actually was a Golden Glove champ in the 80s in Manhattan, where again, it was a little bit of everything through some of my family members that I saw, and then I practiced some of the martial arts with them and kind of brought the seaward planet, so to speak. Throughout my teenage years, I went, raced in New York. I went through, the phases of the breakdancing, in the 80s. We did some gymnastics, flipping and doing all types of stuff. And then I got the love for personal training. So it was more at the beginning of training family. And then obviously as I got older, then went to school, went to college, and then got the education. However, I was not the personal trainer that I am today. Throughout my 20s, I was your typical trainer. I was your rep counter. Okay, we got 10 more. Okay, we got 2 more. Okay, we got 3 more. And perhaps I will get, distracted by something. ADD will kick in and I'll be looking to the side. And then, asking my client, okay, so what number you at? Or faking a funk like I was, involved, but I wasn't, right? In the year 2002, after training, after having a couple of black belts within the industry, my cousin and I decided that we wanted to train on concrete. And we did. We trained on concrete for 5 years. So at the age of 32, in the year 2002, that's when my back really much tapped out. Like the old saying goes, right? The commercial, I'm falling and I can't get up. That was I. I remember calling my wife and telling her that I just could not get out of bed. I could not move. I was diagnosed that particular day with I was just with the x-ray that my vertebrae was just bad in bad business. When we did the MRI, it was 2 herniated discs, L2, L3, L5, S1. So I kind of had to re-educate myself. And it was a very humbling experience because, again, as I mentioned before, I was your typical trainer. So now I'm man down myself, and this is what I love to do for a living. But then it just gave me a different perspective of not only life, but then how can I help the general population? That makes sense. So I had to kind of re-educate myself, and I stumbled into this institute called the Chek Institute. There's one man called Paul Chek, CHEK, which stands for Corrective Holistic Exercise Kinesiology. So kind of what I do for a living. But then I got so many, I dug throughout my rehab. Took me about, I want to say about a year, probably about a year-ish for me to get better. But then throughout that time, I just kept digging, and I just kept getting certifications after certifications with the Chek Institute, which really I really got a better understanding on the anatomy of the back, right? Because we got biomechanically, which is the bones, and then we got kinetic. So how everything pretty much the kinetic chain, the imbalances that we have. I did a certification with them, which was about women, that it's like we're created equal but not the same. Meaning women and women are equal, but we're not the same, because again, there's certain things that the way we train a woman cannot be trained. So I really got good at the side of the corrective exercises. Now, the whole mindset and concept, this has been something that throughout my life, trial and error, thinking errors that we have, rational thinking, irrational thinking, going through, books that I read, self-taught books. One of the books that you and I did talk about was The Power of Now, understanding now that what you do now is going to affect later. Whether you're going to have a positive outcome or a negative outcome, that's up to us as individuals. So throughout the years, I just been picking up a little bit of everything, and then just combining with my own style, just like fighting, right? Bruce Lee will tell you, his foundation is Wing Chun Kung Fu. However, when he created the Jeet Kune Do style, that was his style. He combined a whole bunch of different styles into his own. So pretty much as the evolvement of, you could say life, right? As an individual, where one, the older we get, like fine wine, they say, right? So we become, but it's just about life, our life experiences, and then applying, making the application of what we do learn. Because, it's okay, we can be tech savvy, but at the end of the day, we're not making application, then it's null and void, it's in vain.
Having the ability to take your life experiences and circumstances and find solutions for yourself, and then, as you did, turn them around and apply them to your profession to be able to help others, I think is phenomenal. I know one of the things you and I talk about a lot is energy, and our podcast is Synergy Leadership. Right. And as we've talked about before, energy cannot be created or destroyed. And I know that we're all energy. And if I can leverage my energy and the energy of others, then I know that I can create anything that I need to create. And I call that synergy. So that's why we call it Synergy Leadership. But with that, and we're looking at, the concept of energy and synergy, tell us a little bit about how you personally in your business and the way that you carry yourself and how you live your life, how you leverage energy in your life and in your business.
Great question. And my advice to everyone is something that I apply on a daily basis. I mean, we are human beings, we are imperfect, and we go through so many thinking errors throughout the day. And like you just said, energy is something that you cannot take away. And the as you think you shall be aspect is very important, because what you allow in your brain, in your mind, fester. Because I can get a thought process or something that happened, let's say 20 years ago, that comes from the dinosaur, comes to the front, and is in the frontal lobe, and it's up to me if I want to fester on that or let it just drag me throughout the day, or even days, weeks, or months, or even years. So it's been something that I apply on a daily basis, and not only have I applied it into my businesses, I apply it also in my life, and then it's something that I share also with my clientele and even people that I just met. We could be at a restaurant, we could be at a store or something, somebody that I might know, or somebody that maybe I might know, and then they're with somebody else and they introduce me, and then that's how we establish a relationship. But it's knowing that we are responsible for what we do and the way that we think, because everything starts with the brain. That central nervous system is boss. And a lot of times, we don't realize that the as you think you shall be aspect is a reality, because if we allow the slightest negative thought process to come into our brain, not only would it affect possibly on a different level on your life, put that throughout your particular day, but it's also going to affect the way that your body functions as a whole. You know what I mean? Now you might get, you might be working out, and just because you're not there, you could get hurt. At work, you're not going to be focused with your task at hand. Driving, you can get into an accident. Why? Because you're carrying all that energy, and energy is a real thing, where positive would attract positive, negative would attract negative. There was just like when you put a magnet on the reverse side, that it just pushes it away, or you put it on the eye and they're going to connect, right, when we put them together. So that's the same way. Energy is energy, and positive will attract positive. If somebody's being negative around you, you're going to notice just by the perception, the 85% that we see, right? That's the meaning of that communication, is what we see. And you can tell if that person is negative, is on a negative vibe or a positive vibe. And if you do sense that negativity, do a stage left, walk away, because it's easier said than done, but that energy can actually attract you, because you might be thinking about something negative at that particular time. And the old saying goes that misery does what? Company. So we want to be careful with all the little things throughout the day and days. This way we don't falter in word or deed.
Oh, yes, definitely a word or deed. So a couple of things, and thank you for sharing that. very powerful. You know, Henry Ford says, if you think you can, if you think you can't, you're right.
Right.
And one thing I can say about you, Francisco, and I've watched you, we've known each other for years. I've watched you and witnessed you walk your talk. So you're not just saying, as you think you shall be. You're not just saying, you know, think positively, be careful of your thoughts. You have actually been faced with some challenges recently that very easily could have gone the wrong way. But because one, of your physical fitness, and two, because of your mindset, you shocked some folks. You shocked the medical people that were working with you. And if you don't mind me sharing, I'll just put it in a little synopsis here, that's so that you can focus more on the outcome. About 5 months ago, you got rushed to the hospital not knowing what was going on. You ended up with a blood clot that in the lower extremities that they didn't find initially. And by the time they found it, a portion of your colon had gone and needed to be cut out. And they did that. And this is 3 weeks into the hospital, right? Or was it how many weeks? 3 weeks into the hospital.
Into being in the hospital, then that's when I had to
before they got to that part. And then once they did the surgery, everything appeared to be fine, sent you home. 5 days later, you're back in, and the connection had some growth coming around it, and they ended up having to put, you know, some tubes in and some other stuff, and to treat it, the doctor said, I probably will have to go back in, cut you again, because they've already done surgery, right?
Right.
You'll have to go back in, cut you again, and cut out some more. But what we're going to do first is we're going to have you not eat anything by mouth for 8 to 12 weeks.
Correct.
They fed you intravenously in a main vein in your arm, and they kept you in the hospital for a good while, but then they sent you home with this as well. So you could not eat,
correct,
or drink,
correct,
anything. And listen, I had a dental procedure done 2 weeks ago, and they told me that they were going to do it on one side and not to chew on that side. And when I went, they ended up doing on the bottom here and the right here, so I couldn't chew on either side.
Right,
but I at least was able to chew in the front. I was struggling because the taste buds aren't the same in the back of the mouth, in the front and the back. So I can't imagine what you were going through. But when you went back for your 8-week checkup, you shocked your doctors.
Right.
Now, I want you to tell the audience your strategy, because people go through life crises. You know, I know firsthand because of what we had to deal with my father at first, and then with my son.
Right.
But you lived it firsthand. So walk us through how you leveraged your energy, your mindset, your synergy to shock your doctors when you went back for that visit after 8 weeks.
Okay, so just kind of like piggyback on what you said. You know, they got diagnosed with, at the beginning, they didn't know what was wrong with me. Spent 4 days in the hospital, and then after my wife and I kept, you know, nagging the doctors to do a CT scan, a variant CT scan, they finally did. And I was diagnosed with portal vein thrombosis. So the portal vein is a vein that comes out of the liver, a main vein that feeds the major organs, right? The intestines, you know, the gallbladder, the spleen, and the stomach, right? So they had to rush me out of Providence to MUSC in Charleston. I was airlifted on a helicopter. The procedure was done the following day. And that procedure would have been relatively easy. It was, I had to go in through my neck and then through the liver. They unclogged it. The procedure lasted 2 days. And then right now, as we speak, I got 2 stents. We still don't know why the blood clot happened. It could be a whole bunch of, they're right now under the process of investigating what happened and what caused the blood clot to be there, because we already know that the blood clot was the one that actually clogged the portal vein. Days later, obviously, then I get transferred to MUSC, and then after that procedure is done, then a week later, part of the valve did die. So they had to remove 6 feet of small intestine. Like you said, when I was released a week later, however, on top, there was not, the suture on top was not connecting. So everything that I was eating and drinking was just spilling, and I had an abscess. So the complications just kept, they went from bad to worse. I ended up getting MRSA, behind the abscess that I have. I had a few. I had one main pocket, and then I had a couple of other pockets of fluids around, which they had to drain, that, and very uncomfortable for another 3.5 weeks. One would say, okay, how do you keep it together? Easier said than done. Again, I've been saying throughout, I am a human being, I'm imperfect, and I got feelings, right? Do you think that I had negative thoughts? Yes, ma'am, I did. Did they come in through my head? Yes, they did. The however part is, did I allow it to consume me? No, ma'am. As soon as those thoughts came through my head, I had to change channels and think about something else. As quick as we are home and we can change channels with a remote control, that's how quick you have to change channels when these negative thoughts, they do come in. I mean, I could have had a list of blame, right? The thinking error, and then blame the doctor, blame the nurse, blame this, blame that, go with the old pitiful me attitude, and then just, curled up in the bed and in the fetal position and just wait to whatever happened. I probably wouldn't even be here right now talking to y'all if that was the case. I had to, again, combat a lot of negativity that is just is natural tendency. Research will tell you that, you lose anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds of muscle per day when you're, in a bed. I was in the hospital for 2 months. I was weighing 172 pounds. I went down to 130 pounds. I'm up to 154, 55 pounds. So I still got a little bit ways to go. But again, I would not be here today if I would have festered on those thought processes. And again, it's simple to allow those thoughts to come into your head. And then it's even easier to, again, just allow the thought process to just feed into what the brain is telling you, that, like, okay, well, some of us might have a sugar fetish, salt fetish, a hot food fetish, right? So, the brain knows, because brain is boss. And then the older we are, right, it's just decades of habits and the way that we think. So it's so many things that I had to combat throughout being in a bed and being in the situation that I was in. And then it wasn't that every time that I had a procedure done, it was like, yeah, we got good news. It was like a bummer, like, darn it. The procedure gets done, the first procedure with the port of vein, and then a week later is, well, doctor's knocking on my door telling me I got bad news. It wasn't like, yeah, you're being discharged. It's like, guess what? Part of your valve has to be removed. Yay, right? So, again, that was a moment that I could have right there and then just shut down. However, I did not. I stood positive. I remember being on they wheeled me from my room to the side where they was going to put the anesthesia, and they had a TV on, and I went to my old favorites. I went to cartoons. As old as I am, I still like to watch cartoons, and I just, reflected on the hobby, right? On my childhood, in order for that thought process of the OMG, I'm about to be cut open, I'm about to be, 6 feet out of small intestine, and just so many thought processes that could have gone the wrong way. I went to my childhood. I'm going through the TV, and I forgot what cartoon it was, but I left it there. And then when they came back in, everybody who came in, they was like looking at, oh, you like cartoons? Like, oh, well, yeah, who doesn't like cartoons? But again, is how I had to change channels throughout that whole time. And then we're talking about now the TPN. The TPN is the food that they was giving me through my vein. It was a month in the hospital and then 2 months out of the hospital without the food. That was another struggle. Being home and smelling the food that my wife will be cooking, seeing my 3-year-old boy running around and eating, and the only thing that I was allowed to have was a lollipop, hard candy. That was the only thing that I was allowed to. have throughout the whole almost 3 months that I was on TPN. So that
Share when the doctor came in and said, well, here's our plan. I'm probably gonna have to come in and cut you open again. But we have this other process we're gonna try, which is to have you not eat anything for 8 to 12 weeks. What did you tell him?
I told him that he was not going to cut me again.
And what did he say?
I told him when he told me that, I told him, as you think you shall be. I said, you're not going to cut me. I said, I said, my body, my brain is going to fix. I am going to change this thought process, and my body's going to heal itself. Not me, but my body, my brain working together, because white brain is boss. And if we have the right thought process in here, anything can be accomplished. And that's something that I lived through it. You know, as you think you shall be was always something real in my life. But until the summer came through and I really, when push came to shove, I didn't let it shove me. I pushed back. And that's what really changed my thought process today, where I can tell folks that as you think you shall be is all energy. And a lot of things can change within yourself if you only believe. And, that's something like what you have said. When I went on August the 30th to see if that intestine had healed, because again, he wanted it for me to go 12 weeks, and I'm going to give you 8. And 8 weeks is what I'm giving you, and I know that 8 weeks I'm gonna be healed. When my wife and I went to Charleston and we did the variant and the contrast CT scan, this man he just kept going back into the laptop. I was to the left of him, and then my wife was to the left of me, and he just kept looking at us, talking to us, and he kept going back into the laptop to just keep looking, and he kept just amplifying it and closing it. And he just kept looking at me and going back into the laptop, because he just could not believe that there was all the pockets that they had drained or there was on the process of draining, it was all dried up and there was no more leakage. The intestine on top had healed on his own. And he was just amazed. And the first thing that he told me was, he looked at me and he said, well, you told me that I was not going to go in.
That is awesome. And I again, it is wonderful. My heart bled to see you go through it, but to watch you and the level of strength that you had, your family, because you guys were uprooted, like we were at one point, and having to go back and forth to Charleston, which is very challenging. And I know you were supported by your community. And I know you told me on numerous occasions that you were grateful for the support that they gave you.
Right.
And all of that, again, became available to you because of the energy that you put into the universe, even before the incident happened. So glad you're back. I know as a client, I'm glad you're back. That's weird. Woo, past due. And I know the rest of your clients. And you have and we won't call names, but you have a very, I'm gonna call it a very nice C-suite level of clientele, but they're not the only ones that you work with, but you have some very important, influential people in our community that depend on you to keep them healthy. And you don't call their names. They go off and do their stuff and whatever, because I know they like their privacy, but to be trusted with anybody's life. But when you have that high level, I won't call them high maintenance, but C-suite people or people that own businesses or people that are higher up in management, schedules are tight, right? You don't have a lot of time, and it's difficult to make yourself a priority, and you help us make ourselves a priority. So just wanted to thank you for that. So I'm going to ask, or voluntold that we have an opportunity to do this again, because there's so much more I want to cover with you. But of course, we have limited time today. So right. I definitely would like to have you come back.
Sure.
But I'm gonna close out with 2 questions. One, when you look at your life and you look at your journey and all that you've experienced, what would you say you're most proudest of?
I want to say taking what I have learned and what I have been able to apply in my life and then be able to share it. And then seeing some of the folks that I do share it with, being receptive, and then being able to see it, the manifestation of their change. That's one of the biggest satisfactions that I get. I mean, I will say that, and I'll tap myself on the back at night times when I reflect on my day, and I'm like, okay, well, Francisco, you did, today you did good because, not only did you check your thought process, but then you was able to help others, and then others can feed on my energy. I got problems, like the song says, 99 problems. However, none of them to do with anybody. So I'm never going to bring my energy nor my problems to anybody. I know how to hone it. And that's one thing that I do take. This way, people can feed on my energy, and then they can actually take a little bit, even just a little bit, a 2%, a 1%, even a 0.5%. Home, I'm satisfied.
Awesome. And your energy is contagious. I can tell you from experience it is, and it's a good contagion. So my last question would be, if you could give our listeners one piece of advice, what would it be? Stay
positive. Easier said than done. You guys been hearing me say that, easier said than done, because it's a real thing. But stay positive. There's a lot of people that it could be around you, it could be family members, it could be colleagues, it could be anybody, that they will have the slightest, even 0.5% of negativity. Don't feed in that. Don't feed into that. Always think about, like I mentioned, the book that you and I read, The Power of Now. Think about the power of now, how now is going to affect you later. It takes a second, a snap of a finger, blink of an eye for your life to change on how that power of now is being exercised. You make that irrational decision within that split second, anything could just go astray, and then the consequences is just crazy. However, we take that split second and gives us that thought process of, okay, well, I'm going to do it differently, than the outcome is going to be different. And again, easier said than done, but the more we do it, then it becomes practice, a habit. And then it becomes easier, because now if you do it the first time and you're like, okay, wait a minute, it did work. Okay, then you might have a couple of other instances that we just say we did falter. But then we go back to that original thought process that we had to say 3 weeks ago. And then you kind of like analyze and you're like, all right, darn it. I kind of did not follow through what I did 3 weeks ago. And then I went this way. You kind of balance it out, and then you know that this outcome came out right, but then it's what didn't. So my advice is always analyze, take your time. Don't be so quick to respond when we're around people. Pay attention to how we listen, right? This way, again, we can gather all the thought process, gather the energy, and then don't be so quick to reply, because again, if we quick to reply, we're missing a whole bunch of in-betweens. And then that's where then things can actually go bad. Pay attention to how you listen, always stay focused, and exercise the power of now. And
thank you.
You shall be, it is a real thing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Francisco Martinez Jr. I would like you to share with our audience, if they wanted to reach out to you to talk to you about any of your personal, I'm gonna call them personal growth, personal support, personal training services, how would they be able to reach you?
So first of all, I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank the audience for having me here. Looking forward for the second part, the audience for being here and actually listening to us. My number is 803-730-0682. I am on Facebook. The Francisco Martinez Jr. will be the regular Facebook page. The Drop Dead Weight LLC is also the webpage, the Facebook page. on it. On Instagram, it's the same, Drop Dead Weight LLC. And then the webpage is kind of outdated. We're going to be updating it. But if y'all want to also communicate through there, you can. Is dropdeadweight.com, is one word, with www.dropdeadweight.com.
Awesome. Repeat that phone number for me one more time.
803-730-0682.
Thank you again. Francisco Martinez Jr. Has positively impacted my life. I am so glad you're back. I have missed you over the last 5 months. And I'll share with the audience that he and I are getting ready to go get busy doing some exercise.
That's right.
that I have needed. Oh my gosh, it's for a very long time. So we're so excited to have you back. I don't know how excited I'm going to be doing the workout, but I'm excited before and I'm excited after. So to our audience, thank you all again for tuning in to our Synergy Leadership Podcast. Again, if you're trying to reach us, reach out to www.krjconsulting.com. And we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Synergy Leadership Podcast with Karen R. Jenkins. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe, rate, review, and share our show. See you next time.